let's talk about AAARRR Funnel. So it was developed in 2007 by venture investor. And by the way, the original funnel was a little bit shorter, so awareness and acquisition was in the acquisition layer. So why we need this funnel? Customer go from the top and go through all the funnels. And why we need it? To decompose all layers of stages and work with every layer separately. So I also recommend to watch my video Profit Formula, where I mathematically connect all the layers. So let's go to every layer separately. So awareness. The goal is that the customer remembers the brand and also the specific message with the brand. If I'd like to drink, I need Coke. If I would like to search, I need Google. So customer don't need to remember only your brand, but also some message related to the brand. So what tactics can we use? We can use ads, SEO, SMM, webinars, influencers, content outside the website. So it's very important that it's everything outside your website. By the way, optimization for search engine you do inside the website, but it's influenced outside the website. And what kind of metrics we use to measure? It could be different views, impressions, cost per mile, click-through rate, brand search volume. So usually the main one is brand search volume. So later, how many people type in the Google your brand? So it's very important. Also, we have many tools to, not we, but in the internet there are many tools to measure brand search volume, but this is enough. So some examples. So Edadeal, it's like discount aggregator. They need to get new installs. And they understood that their customer profile is mothers with kids and also students. And they start targeting students because it's cheaper to target. And they found that lots of students comes to the webinars or publics like Wage Success, How to Become a Millionaire. And what they did is they promote the message. If you would like to be very rich, firstly, you need to know how to save. So use Edadeal app. And there was extremely successful ads, and they decrease customer acquisition cost by 30% and increase the audience by 10%. So very flexible, very nice tactic steps. So if you would like to be a millionaire, learn how to save fast. As example is B1LT. You know that Google Ads is always price is increasing, and the customer acquisition cost increased about 10 times in several years. So B1LT team create online accounting courses that were free, put it on YouTube, put on the landings, and got lots of incoming traffic. And it becomes much easier to advertise free accounting courses than advertising accounting program. So there were lots of traffic, lots of impressions, and also cheaper views. So brand awareness becomes deeper, becomes much better. And also B1LT team put ads on the invoices. So people exchange invoices, and there are some ads on the invoices. So more than 100,000 invoices with ads splitting each month. So it's also providing brand awareness, and people know about the brand. So acquisition. So when we acquire the customer, so when customer react to the message, and that step we gather information from the customer. We need the lead. So how we interact with customers? Of course, what is on our website or in our app? It's like landing, content, content on the website. So, and some tricks how to collect the data. And main metrics is through like conversion rate. So how many people we convert from the first page to the registration. Of course, quantity of leads and bounce rate, because bounce rate, we need to decrease it, of course, and we need to track it. And by the way, conversion rate could be like several steps, for example. And when we call about CTR, it's like click-through rate, we're talking usually about one click, for example. In awareness, we measure this click-through rate because we measure only one click or view. With conversion rate, and on this level, on this layer, we measure could be several actions. For example, registration could be a long process. So how we can increase our customer acquisition? So case with Tviz. So Tviz is a TV program app, and the goal was to get more users, as everybody should have the same goal. So what they did, they changed the icon in store. The old icon was ununderstandable, new icon just showed TV. So people type something, saw the icon, so understand what they get, what they will get. And the icon change with A/B testing showed plus 30% in conversions. 30% just changing the icon. And by the way, they also did some tricks. For example, was like a filter button. It's like was a filter button, just an icon. They put icon plus filter word. So people start using this button 4 times more often. Can you imagine just putting word nearby the button can increase button rate like 4 times? So once they got better conversion with after changing the icon, of course, they get more traffic. And of course, traffic was have better conversion. So at the end, they have plus 100% more users. Just understand, Android market, App Store, Google, it's all about conversions. You increase conversions, your search volume grows. So Google loves conversion also, I store as well. So activation, next layer. So the idea is to try it out. So customer need to try the product. Usually everybody skip this level. It's like it's not exist. So the idea customer achieve aha moment. Aha moment, it's also listen in the watching several video. I really recommend it. But the idea just customer should feel the value of your product. So do the key action and feel the value. Once he feels the value, he will stay with you. Sometimes it's better to have less activations, but customer gets really good value of your product. For example, customer configures the product and then activate it, rather than just customer just activate it. So the idea just that we need educated customer. If customer is educated and reach aha moment, it means he will stay for you much longer than just a customer. Also, what kind of metrics we use here? We use activation rate. So we need to activate as much customers as we can. Also, the example. Product DocDoc. It's a product for finding a doctor. And they have a problem that they have low conversion to applications. And start analyzing the problem and found that it's very complicated to customer to choose a doctor. What they did, they just randomly put different badges and see that doctors with badges have better conversion. And they start putting like this like with, I don't know, with provide different, different badges for different doctors. So for customers, it's much easier to choose. And like, let's say if it's you, there are 50 doctors, everybody is like master of degree and blah, blah, blah. How would you choose the doctor? But when you know that it's most popular or better ratings or focus on difficult cases, so it's much easier for you to choose a doctor. And plus 10% in conversions. That is incredibly nice. Badges simplifies. So retention. Retention is very important step just because it's influent to the LTV. Because LTV retention is part of LTV. And the main goal here is to return the customer. So how we can return the customer? Because email, messengers, push notifications. But of course, main retention tool is product quality. If quality is bad, nobody helps you. If product is good, use these tools to improve it. Improve your retention. And what kind of metrics? So there are end-day retention. It means like when it's first, fifth, 7th, or 13th day of retention. It means like when customer return to the product. For, let's say, news, it's usually first day retention. For different products could be a bigger one. But also I recommend to use as short as possible just to understand what is going on. Because if we don't know what is going on, it's very difficult for us to develop the product. So if we know that this specific audience from these ads have bad retention, so we can focus on other ads. Also, there are rolling retention is opposite than bounce rate. So could be end-day retention, for example, 30-day retention. People bought it and they return after 30 days, let's say. And for example, they start using the product and return after 30 days to use it again. But rolling retention, it's like opposite the bounce rate. So it's if bounce rate is bigger, rolling retention is smaller. Also, nice metrics is customer satisfaction index. So you need to measure it through testing. And sticky factor. Usually for ideal nice portal, daily audience is the same as monthly audience. They're like, but like not the same, but it's like bigger. For some products, you need stable audience, like news portals. And for some audience, you need always new users, like I don't know, somebody who sells products. They always need new audience. So, and case, just an example, Miro. So Miro need better conversion, and they had growth hackers here, and they found the idea that some customers have better conversions than others, and they start analyzing and saw that people who choose templates stay with the product longer. So what they did, they start promoting these templates. Earlier templates were just somewhere hidden in the corner. Now they are for everybody. And of course, because people start using more templates, they stay with this product better. Retention grows by 7%. That is extremely nice. Some different in the interface didn't ever made product better, but retention becomes better. So next case is to do. It's the scheduling app for buses, trains, and blah blah blah. And the problem was that buses changing schedules very often, and there are a lot of suppliers, so it's very complicated to make nice schedule. And as trains, the changing schedule is very rare, and one supplier. So what guys did, they asked customers to send them pictures of schedule. While they're on the bus stop, they just make the picture of the schedule and send to the app. And the product team was like shocked how many people would like to increase the quality of app. And the result, retention plus 40%, and like 40% for the relevance of the schedule. So the schedule becomes much more better. And because the schedule is better, retention also increased. So next one is revenue, maybe. The idea is customer need to pay. And we should work here with business model, with paywall. Paywall, it means like where customer pays the payment dialog, and also with price. And of course, metrics are paying users, and of course, amount of money we collected. And by the way, lots of people paying with paywall just because it's much easier to play with than because changing business model or pricing sometimes could be a very long process. So the case with Lingualeo, they use golden toilet method. So they have three type of pricing of prices, and on the most expensive prices they put that best offer. Customer said, oh, best offer, most expensive. Oh no. And they start choosing cheapest one. So they got plus 37% in revenue and 30% in orders. So it's just incredibly just badge on the pricing page. And it could be like, I'm sorry, not the pricing in the wallet, can just increase the metrics very, very nice. So referral. Referral is the last step of the funnel. And referral can have two sides, one or two. For example, when you send friends to the product and you get some fees for that, some income for that, it's like one way. But for example, if I use, let's say, Dropbox, I send my friend, so I get some space, and my friend get additional space. So it's like two sides. Referral program. And what is very nice with that kind of things, when you provide more space, not money. So customer doesn't cost for you at all. So customers do nice things and don't ever get the money. And usually when they get features, very important, when customers get features inviting other friends, sometimes it's much more effective than they getting money. So they need features that do something. And also viral loop, it's when, for example, I use Miro board and I need to ask my friends to come. I ask my friends to come, we work together, and Miro don't ever need to pay for me. I just for my pleasure, it's more comfortable for me. And metrics. There are two types of metrics. One is key factor. Key factor means like how many users are attracted by one user. It means like how one user can attract new users. How many? And also share rate is percentage of your users who shares. And of course, mostly young products do not ever measure these metrics, but they're very important to growth. And one example for Modulbank. So Modulbank is not a big bank, and there are lots of big sharks around him. And he needs somehow to advertise. And they found is that when people get money in the app, they get message like, you get 200 euros from Petrov, blah, blah, blah. And technically they see everything in this push-up notification. But they still click inside. They click inside and go to the app. And because they emotionally, friendly at that moment, they get the money. So there was a button like they can share with their friends and get $15 for that. So it's a good app, it's share with friends. So what they did, they share with friends and get the income that they can use later in their bank system. So they get 30% of new users from referrals. So it's very nice. So they're getting 30% of new users from referrals. And of course, they increase the share rate a lot. And by the way, Wise also I did transfer yesterday, and also there are please send the transfer details to your friend, like track the transfer. Also, when you share it, they also recommend they put ads to type referral, that I get some ads and my friend gets ads. My friend gets some discount. So it's really incredible. So other banks use that system. So it's really very nice. And so it was the last level of the funnel. So let's switch to other video. And do not forget about profit formula, where I mathematically connect all the funnel.